Welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung said it would be undesirable to scrap past deals on wartime issues that South Korea reached with Japan on issues of Korean wartime sex slaves and forced laborers. He told a Japanese news outlet that although the deals may be difficult to accept, they are commitments made between nations. And the president appeared on Arirang's special program and addressed the power of Korean culture, joining experts and artists, including the director of Netflix animated film K-pop Demon Hunters. As the U.S. pushes for a three-way summit with Putin and Zelensky to end the Ukraine war, Russia says security talks without Moscow are a road to nowhere, in an apparent warning to the West as it scrambles to work out guarantees for Kyiv's future protection. President Lee Jae-myung had an interview with a Japanese newspaper ahead of his trip to Tokyo this weekend for talks with Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. For more, we have our presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min on the line for us. Jung-min, what did the president have to say on Seoul's relationship with Tokyo?
Benji, the South Korean leader said it would be undesirable to overturn agreements that were reached with Japan on wartime issues of Korean sex slaves and forced laborers. In an interview with Japan's Yomiuri Shimbun, released Thursday morning, President Lee acknowledged that though the deals finalized under previous conservative governments are difficult to accept, they are commitments made between nations. At the same time, he noted the feelings of the South Korean people should be taken into account, adding that what could be more important than compensation is offering words of consolation in a sincere manner. In 2015, the so-called Comfort Women Agreement was reached under the Park Geun-hye administration. And in 2023, the third-party compensation scheme for wartime laborers was agreed under the Yoon Suk-yeol administration. Those agreements sparked some backlash in Korea. He also stressed the importance of the Seoul-Tokyo relationship ahead of his talks with Japan's Ishiba this weekend, hoping to expand cooperation on the economy, society, and culture.
Right, and Jung-min, he also mentioned regional security, right? What was his message?
Right, Inji, he did mention North Korea's nuclear issues, outlining a three-stage roadmap that involves freezing, reducing, and dismantling the North nuclear and missile programs. He added that this will be pursued while maintaining a close coordination with the U.S. and pursuing active inter-Korean dialogue. It's the first time that President Lee unveiled such a solution over North Korea's nuclear issues. I also have to note that he will be flying straight from Tokyo to Washington this weekend for his first summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. That's all from me now. Back to you, Inji.
All right, thank you for that, Jung-min. And President Lee, who has long highlighted the borderless power of culture, appeared on a special Arirang TV program and vowed more government support and investment in culture. Our top office correspondent Chung Yoo-jin reports.
Wearing a sky blue jacket instead of his usual dark suit, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung on Wednesday joined a star-studded panel on Arirang TV's special program, K-pop: The Next Chapter. The president was joined by Maggie Kang, writer and director of the Netflix hit K-pop Demon Hunters, girl group Twice members Jihyo and Jeongyeon, producer RT, and music critic Kim Young-dae to discuss the future of K-pop and more broadly, the K-culture industry. Reflecting on the global boom in Korean culture, President Lee emphasized that its potential is far from exhausted.
How far do you think South Korea has come as a cultural heavyweight?
지금 우리가 좀 문화가 강한 나라로 향해 들어가고 있죠. 가장 한국적인 것이 가장 세계적인. 우리 자신감을 가져도 된다니까.
For that to happen, the president underscored the need for a solid support system, pointing out that government investment in culture has been lacking for decades.
정말 이런 위대한 작품이나 예술가들이 나온다는 것 자체가 정말 대단하지 않습니까? 그렇죠. 기적에 가깝다고 보실 것 같아요. 정부 입장에서는 정말 길게 보고 문화 산업을 키우되 문화적 토양도 대대적인 투자 지원을 해서 더 많은 사람들이 도전할 수 있게, 학습할 수 있게.
At the same time, he also reaffirmed his administration's principle of supporting without interference.
원하는 자유로움을 본질로 하는데요. 자유로워야 되잖아요. 개성이 있어야 되고 창의적이라야 되고 영혼이 자유로워야 되는데 블랙리스트니 뭐 이래서 감시하고 규제하고 선별하고 이러니까 사실 현장에서 문화예술이 좀 죽어가는 측면도 있는데 이제 자유로운 환경을 만들어주고 물도 많이 줘서 잘 자랄 수 있게 해주고 그 안에서 경쟁해서 또 새로운 영역도 생겨나고.
The hour-long program explored ways to further expand the global reach of Korean culture. Panelists suggested creating arena-style performance venues and more opportunities to showcase not only K-pop, but a wider range of genres. Building on this, the Lee administration aims to position South Korea as one of the world's leading cultural powerhouses. 송유진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, former First Lady Kim Gun-hee, who is accused of violating the Political Funds Act, will once again appear for questioning before a special counsel team on Thursday. Kim is set to appear for questioning at 2 p.m. for her third summons since her arrest last week. She was originally scheduled to appear on Wednesday, but requested a one-day delay, citing health issues. Thursday's questioning is expected to center on allegations of her receiving luxury gifts from the Unification Church through a shaman in exchange for business favors. With several issues under investigation, prosecutors have sought and obtained court approval to extend Kim's detention until August 31st. On the diplomatic front, President Lee is set to hold a summit with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump next Monday in Washington. For more on what to expect from the meeting, we're joined by Professor Robert Kelly, Professor of International Relations at Busan National University. Professor Kelly, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So this will be President Lee's first trip to the U.S. since taking office in early June. Could you tell us more about the significance of this visit?
Well, the United States and Korea, of course, have been allies for a long time, and so it's wise for the heads of state to meet one another on a regular basis, right? I believe every South Korean president has met his or her U.S. counterpart within 6 months of taking office. This is not unanticipated. In fact, I think everybody really expected this to happen. The issues are a little bit trickier than usual now. I imagine we'll get to this, but the tariffs have become sort of a real issue, right? It's in the Korean papers all the time. And I think there's also some discussion about security. It's going to be pretty tricky because the United States really wants U.S. forces and U.S. allies in East Asia to begin focusing on China. This is something that's really sensitive, particularly for progressive governments in South Korea. And so I have the feeling that this summit, if they really get in and discuss the issues, could be there could be a lot of disagreement.
Right, like you said, a lot of tricky issues. And President Lee has previously talked about pursuing pragmatic diplomacy, sort of centered on national interest. Do you think we'll see that in action when he meets President Trump next week?
Yeah, so the Americans have kind of read this to mean that South Korea is going to be softer on North Korea and China and tougher on Japan. This is something that you would expect from progressive governments in Korea, and that has traditionally led to tension with the United States, right? We saw that really clearly when Moon Jae-in was president, right? It got so bad between Korea and Japan that the U.S. had to step in. I think the Americans are really concerned that that kind of thing is going to happen again. Although I would point out in passing that the Trump government is significantly less concerned about that than the Biden or the Obama government, right? I mean, Donald Trump just doesn't care about U.S. allies as much as other U.S. presidents have. So if Korea, Japan really goes off the rails, I don't actually know if the Americans will step in as they have in the past. But generally speaking, if South Korea wants to be a U.S. ally, that means it's a U.S. ally, and that means it's got to sort of more or less stay within the frame, if you will, on U.S. behavior in East Asia, right? So if South Korea really goes freelancing on China, for example, that's going to be a real problem. And I think the Lee government has been hearing this behind the scenes from U.S. think tankers and from the American foreign policy community. And I think they're kind of in a bit of a bind here because I think the Lee government would like to do stuff that sort of expresses this independence, right? But, the cost of that could be declining or thinning U.S. alliance ties.
Right, and on North Korea says South Korea can't be its diplomatic partner, even as Seoul, tries to ease sort of tensions with Pyongyang. Could the meeting between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump open the door to talks with Kim Jong-un?
It looks like the North Korean government just does not want to talk to the South Korean government. I have to admit, I find that kind of surprising. Traditionally, progressive governments in South Korea have been willing to sort of meet North Korea, certainly far more than conservative governments. If you're North Korea, progressive governments, the opportunity for you to look for a deal. So I'm kind of surprised it doesn't happen. It is possible that Donald Trump could reopen diplomacy with North Korea, but to be honest, if I were the North Koreans, I would be awfully skeptical about that, right? And we all remember 2018, 2019, it was all kind of thrown together. Nothing really came out of it. The Trump people showed up in Hanoi without any real sense of what to ask for. When the one deal fell apart, they both just kind of stormed out of the room and canceled the lunch. I would be awfully surprised if the North Koreans were to come back for that without something much more concrete from the U.S. and South Korean side. And perhaps that'll be a part of the summit, but I don't know, given how intransigent the North Koreans have been recently.
I see. In South Korea and the United States, they kicked off their annual military drills this week. And a lot of attention is now on how the Korean government will handle the security issue, especially the cost sharing for American troops stationed here in Korea. How do you see that playing out?
I would imagine that Donald Trump at the summit, or at least through his negotiators later, will ask for a substantial expansion in the special measures agreement payment. Right now, roughly, the Koreans pay about half, which is about $1 billion. I would imagine that Donald Trump is going to ask for double or triple or quadruple that figure. He's done this in the past. We know that Donald Trump often sort of measures foreign policy success in terms of dollars brought in. That's how he markets the tariffs. That's how he's talked to Ukraine, right? He's really pushing the Ukrainians hard to make these big commitments to buy American weapons. And so I think South Korea needs to really think about this, right? Is it worth paying the Americans more for the alliance or not? I mean, this is just not the Biden administration anymore, the sort of belief and sort of shared values, and we're in this together. The Trump people just don't think that way, right? And the Trump people want to see the money on the table. And I think the South Koreans are going to struggle with that. My own sense is that it's actually a really good bargain for South Korea. South Korea is quite a wealthy country. Paying more for a world-class security commitment from the world's only superpower strikes me as a really, really good bargain. But I think there's a real problem. There's a real issue of sort of national pride and humiliation, the perception that South Korea was snubbed by Trump and is sort of paying him off. If that's how this thing gets marketed, the South Korean public's going to turn against it.
Right, I guess we'll have to see how that plays out next week. All right, Professor Kelly, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Amid efforts to bring an end to the prolonged war in Ukraine, Moscow says it must be part of international talks on Ukraine's security. The comments come as NATO military leaders gather to discuss security guarantees for Kyiv. Our Park Jun-an has more.
While the U.S. and NATO have been discussing possible security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a peace deal in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Moscow on Wednesday said security discussions without Moscow are a road to nowhere.
We cannot agree with the fact that it is now proposed to resolve collective security issues without the Russian Federation. And I am sure that in the West, and above all in the United States, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia, a road to nowhere.
This comes as NATO military leaders discussed security guarantees for Ukraine in a post-conflict scenario. Although the specifics were not revealed, it is believed that in-depth talks took place on implementing the European-led security guarantees for Ukraine. Ukraine has strongly disagreed on Russia's involvement in security guarantees since early stages of war back in 2022. Prior to Russian Foreign Minister's remark, the U.S.-based outlet Politico reported on Tuesday that a trilateral summit could take place in Budapest, Hungary, bringing together U.S. President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, as Russia has insisted that it must be given equal footing with other countries such as the U.S., China, the U.K., and France when it comes to discussing any security guarantees for Ukraine, some media outlets have raised doubts over whether Putin will attend the peace summit with Zelensky. 박준환, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, Israel says it's calling up around 60,000 reservists ahead of a planned ground offensive aimed at capturing and occupying all of Gaza City. Meanwhile, 10 Hamas militants were killed after they attempted to ambush an IDF outpost in southern Gaza. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Israeli military says it is calling up around 60,000 reservists ahead of a planned ground offensive aimed at capturing and occupying all of Gaza City. The military says it will go ahead with the operation with the aim of eliminating Hamas.
We will deepen the attack on Hamas in Gaza City, a stronghold of governmental and military terror for the terrorist organization. We will intensify the strikes on the terror infrastructure above and below ground and sever the population's dependence on Hamas.
According to Israeli officials, the reservists will begin reporting for duty in September, but most of the forces for the operation will come from active duty units already on the ground. The move comes as Israel prepares to order hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza City to evacuate south. The government announced its intention to seize the entire Gaza Strip after the ceasefire and hostage talks with Hamas collapsed last month. However, mediators Qatar and Egypt are pushing for a new agreement, a 60-day truce and the release of about half of the 50 hostages still believed to be in Gaza. While Hamas says it has accepted the proposal, Israel has not issued a formal response and insists it will only accept a comprehensive deal that secures the release of all hostages. Meanwhile, fighting continues on the ground. On Tuesday, around 18 Hamas militants emerged from a tunnel near Khan Yunis and attacked an Israeli Kafir brigade outpost with rifles and anti-tank grenade launchers. Israeli forces backed by airstrikes killed 10 of the attackers, while the rest retreated into the tunnel. 3 Israeli soldiers were injured in the ambush, none of them seriously. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji. Good morning, Ji.
Good morning, Anji.
So, Ji, let's begin in Europe, where Poland says a Russian drone has crashed in its territory. Tell us more.
Right. Poland's defense minister said that an object that crashed and exploded in eastern Poland was identified as a Russian drone. At a press conference on Wednesday afternoon, Poland's defense minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz stated that the military drone which crashed earlier that day was a Russian provocation during peace negotiations. At around 2 a.m. on August 20th, a drone crashed and detonated in a cornfield near Osini in Lublin province. The explosion shattered nearby windows but did not cause any injuries. An area of 8 to 10 meters around the crash site was burned. Poland's defense minister stated that the drone was Russian and likely a variant of the Shahed model equipped with a Chinese engine, which may have been designed to self-destruct mid-air. He called the incident a deliberate provocation by Russia amidst ongoing peace talks regarding Ukraine. Since a stray Ukrainian missile struck a southern Polish village in 2022, killing 2 people, Poland has been on high alert for objects entering its airspace. The Indian city of Mumbai is recovering from heavy rains that battered the city earlier this week. Since Monday, Mumbai saw over 409 millimeters of rain in just 36 hours. The torrential downpours paralyzed the city, submerging streets and disrupting both train and air travel. More than 1,000 people were evacuated from parts of Mumbai and Maharashtra state, and around 800 individuals who were stranded on a monorail were rescued on Tuesday. All public transport services in Mumbai, including local trains, resumed normal operations on Wednesday morning after a 15-hour disruption. The India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for Mumbai and its neighboring districts on Wednesday, indicating that moderate to heavy rainfall is expected throughout the day. At least 21 people have died in rain-related incidents across Maharashtra state this week. Pope Leo XIV has designated Friday, August 22nd as a day of fasting and prayer for peace in Ukraine, the Middle East, and other war-torn regions. During his weekly audience at the Vatican on Wednesday, he encouraged all the faithful to live the day of August 22nd in fasting and prayer, asking God to grant peace and justice and to wipe away the tears of those who suffer because of the ongoing armed conflicts. This date coincides with the Catholic commemoration of the Queenship of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which honors Mary as the Queen of Peace. Gamescom 2025, the world's largest video games trade fair, has officially kicked off in Cologne, Germany. The event is open to the public starting Thursday at the Kernmesche Exhibition Center after it opened to media and trade visitors the day before. This year, Gamescom features a record 1,500 exhibitors from around the globe and is expected to attract over 300,000 attendees. Visitors will have the chance to explore game demos, attend panel discussions, and celebrate gaming culture. Most of the games showcased will be released in the coming months or in 2026. Gamescom runs until August 24th.
We are heading to the end of August, but the heat is not showing any sign of easing up. Heat wave warnings have been in place for nearly a week straight for the southern parts of Korea. And just yesterday, heat warnings have been expanded to parts of Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-do provinces. We're also watching for rain and scattered showers. Jeju is expected to see up to 40 millimeters of rainfall through this afternoon. In the meantime, the capital region, parts of Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-namdo province could see 5 to 40 millimeters of passing showers, and southern regions could see more than that. Now, this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 32 degrees, but Daegu, Daejeon, Gyeongju will be topping out at 35 degrees Celsius. Feels like temperatures will be higher with that high humidity. This weekend also marks the Choseol, which traditionally signals the end of the summer heat, often called the Choseol magic. But this year, again, the sweltering heat is expected to linger even beyond Choseol, so take care.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea if you've signed a contract for a one room. Obviously, you're a pro. But the real deal begins now. Step 1. Housewarming. No need to buy toilet paper, diffusers or hand soap. You'll get them soon enough as housewarming gifts. And some are bound to pile up. There's nothing better to serve your guests than milpaeyu nabe. If you have Korean friends coming over, don't forget the extra garlic. Step 2. Garbage disposal. With great power comes great responsibility. You've had a good time, so let's get to work. It might be tempting to sweep everything into a trash can, but you have to separate your garbage. Not bothered? Beware that negligence is punished with a fine or public humiliation. Step 3. Drying rack. You're excited to live alone in Korea, but the fate of these items, hanger, storage, or a hanger. Go get fresh coffee outside. Jogging doesn't cost anything, and nothing beats instant rice. But keep one item around so that you don't get too lonely. Step 4. Pros of living alone. No mum. Cons of living alone. No mum. A new towel doesn't magically appear. You have to do the laundry regularly. If anyone gives a towel as a souvenir, take it. Get rid of mold immediately. Don't be lazy with the vacuum cleaner. Housework is an endless affair. Overwhelmed? Give your mum a call and thank her for everything she's done. Did you survive in your one room? Wait, you have an unwanted visitor. Call someone you fancy. Could be the right person for the job.
남들과는 다르게 색다르게 너에게 통화 라이더스 누구보다 빠르게 남들과는 다르게 무엇보다 이 순간 행복하게 너에게 달려가 너에게 달려가 너에게 달려가
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day. We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Thursday, August 21st. Here is Hall. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Julian Kim.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Also, Ki Kim is with us.
Morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Thursday, which means we're going to begin with our keyword news, where we look at a story that has been gaining traction over the past 24 hours. And today's keyword is greenhouse gas. South Korea's greenhouse gas emissions fell below 700 million tons last year for the first time since 2010. The Environment Ministry announced Wednesday that the country's emissions are estimated at about 691 million tons in 2024. The ministry typically releases preliminary data first because it takes roughly 2 years to finalize the official figure. And the decline was largely driven by a reduction in coal-fired power generation, while nuclear and renewable energy sources increased. So, Ki, can this lead to a downward trend in emissions in the coming years as well? And concerns remain as industrial emissions still rose 0.4% on year in 2024.
Of course, the concern remains as a very difficult answer, right? But then, like you've mentioned, we were able to reduce the emission, but that's only when we're talking electricity. We used less fossil fuels and more renewable energy or nuclear energy before when producing electricity, but industrial emissions hasn't been reduced, not even a single bit. Despite the weather and climate being extreme with the super hot weather and everything, all the related institutes, both public and private sectors, need to work together to reduce the industrial emissions. To achieve our goal, greenhouse gas emissions must decline by an average of 3.6% every year. And we can expand using renewable energy, but in reality, again, the factories and related facilities that produce goods need to reduce their emissions.
So like you said, 3.6% every year is still, there's a long way for us to go, but like hopefully providing incentives such as tax breaks might help.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts on this, Julian?
Well, I definitely think it's good news that greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced, but I still believe that we need to be vigilant and proactive in cutting emissions. We should be continuing to push for more environmentally friendly policies in our government and constantly encourage the development of green technology. As Ki has mentioned, we still have a long ways to go to reduce industrial emissions. But this is a small win, but we still have a lot more to do.
So the preliminary data is being welcomed as an encouraging sign, reflecting reduced coal use and growing reliance on nuclear and renewable energy. But with major industries and transport still heavily reliant on fossil fuels, it's clear that continued policy support and investment in cleaner energy will be crucial if the country hopes to become truly carbon neutral. And that concludes our keyword news for this Thursday. And as we head our way towards the end of the work week, we're going to dive into a topic that explores how younger and older generations can share knowledge and work together in today's fast-changing world. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more.
There's a saying as old as time about the importance of listening to and learning from your elders. But in today's fast-changing world, the younger generation is also gaining recognition for bringing fresh ideas, new skills, and innovative ways of thinking. And that's why we're seeing a new wave of reverse mentoring, an approach that flips the traditional mentoring model across workplaces and institutions. So today on News Generation, we're exploring how different generations can learn from one another, adapt together, and work side by side in this rapidly evolving society.
So as we just saw in the video, younger generations are bringing fresh ideas and perspectives into workplaces and society. And this is one reason why reverse mentoring, where senior employees gain insights from their younger colleagues, often in areas like technology, social media, or cultural trends. And the topic of our main discussion today has become increasingly important. So while they challenge traditional ways of doing things, younger generations also introduce innovative solutions that many never anticipated. So as these shifts continue, we're starting to see meaningful changes in how different generations connect, collaborate, and move to work together. Ki, as the only millennial in our studio today, has there been anything recently about the Gen Zs, maybe a skill or attitude, or even a way of thinking that has recently surprised you in a positive way? Sorry for putting you on the spot like this.
The question hurts. I guess our lovely writer wants me to kick out of this NZ program. Anyways, as a broadcaster living and still surviving from the dinosaur era, I find it really fascinating how creative people can be with their ideas for promotions. So these days, so many, especially my juniors, are putting out their vlogs, vlogs, or reels. And it's amazing to see how they can put everything together so quickly and smoothly with just a smartphone. It's very impressive. I just can't sit down and look at my phone all day with my stuffy fingers to do all that. I need gadgets. I need a computer. I need a program. I need techie things to edit anything. So it's very different nowadays.
But you're someone that's obviously very active on social media. Have
Sure.
you noticed anything that the younger generation does that seemed kind of interesting?
I mean, I know all the gadgets and I know how to do it, but it's just that latest trend about the sound effect or, for example, visual effects, screen effects, and how they manipulate them and then just try to cooperate with the latest trend. That's the thing I really learned from them. Like how Julian is doing on his
He's doing great,
social media.
I've seen some of those reels. So would you be willing to learn how to edit these reels really quickly?
Of course, and then, you know, there's a lot of, for example, when I was editing, I know a lot of shortcuts with my keyboards and everything, right? And then it seems like the younger generation know how to use that and facilitate with all those apps and, you know, gadgets on their phones. So I'm really willing to learn all those.
But obviously it's not just Ki here who's open to learning new skills. People across different generations are showing growing interest in kicking up the habits and strength that younger people are known for. So to get a better sense of this, we turned to our viewers on the Arirang News YouTube channel and asked which skill commonly associated with Gen Zs would you most like to learn? And here's what they said. So 52% pointed to their ability to solve old problems in new ways. Another 25% highlight their skills in editing reels and vlogs right from their phones, while 13% mentioned their modern and open communication styles. Meanwhile, 10% said they were most impressed by how quickly Gen Zs can find information online. It's not only in daily life or personal interactions that this is happening. Increasingly, we're also seeing institutions and companies deliberately setting aside time to learn directly from younger generations. So Julian, can you give us a sense of what this looks like?
Definitely. So recently, the Gyeongbuk Office of Education held a reverse mentoring program. So in this program, the traditional roles are reversed. The superintendent becomes the mentee, while the millennial Gen Z teachers and public officials acted as mentors. As mentors, they shared insights on their generation's working style as well as their organizational communication culture. Now, Korea, as we know, has a strong tradition of showing deep respect towards seniors, so it's not very common for the younger generation to mentor the older generation. However, I truly do believe that intergenerational communication and understanding are crucial to developing a brighter future for all. Innovation driven by the fresh ideas of younger generations will unlock new potential that has never been imagined before.
So this reverse mentoring actually started back in the U.S. in 1999 when companies began pairing younger employees with senior executives to share new perspectives. And now, more than 25 years later, the concept seems to be gaining renewed attention here in Korea. So Ki, why do you think this idea is resonating so strongly today? And why is learning from the younger generation considered so important now?
I mean, obviously they have different ideas, right? But then sometimes so here it is. There are three little phrases that often get used to poke fun at MZers or more of a Z generation at the workplace. 제가요, me, 이걸요, this, and 왜요? Really? Why? And they're seen as a kind of responses young employees get and give when they don't accept their boss's order right away. So I'm going to we're going to play a small skit with Julian and I.
Cool.
So I'm going to be just a superintendent or a boss at a company, and whereas Julian's going to play a Z generation newbie to the company. So here it is. How about a company dinner tonight, Thursday, and have a small drink?
Sure, of course. Honestly, having a team dinner every week is exhausting. I don't want to drink with my coworkers. I'd rather go on a date or hit the gym.
Cut. And that's kind of situation that people are talking about. And yes, it's usually painted in a negative tone or negative light. But when you take a closer look, what the younger generation is actually doing is asking questions and trying to figure out, find a way of working what makes sense to them. And this mindset and approach to work is very different from the previous generations. And instead of dismissing it just as a simple conflict, companies are starting to recognize it as a generational difference. And some are even introducing reverse mentoring programs to bridge the gap. And Bill Gates, famous Bill Gates once said, you know, the laziest person can be very creative because they've tried to find a way to not work but get the result done at the same time. So they're also hugely influential group of consumers, and understanding them isn't just about workplace harmony. It's all about a smart way to connect with the market.
I mean, since Bill Gates is visiting Korea, maybe that's something you can talk to him about as well.
Maybe, for sure.
And as a Gen Z, like, I also agree, like, for me, like, really understanding why certain things are the way they are is really important. Because I truly believe that a lot of misunderstanding comes from, like, not really understanding, like, where they're coming from, and or that's where conflicts arise, too. So also from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. The trends are changing faster than ever, so companies say it's more important than ever to stay ahead. So many are now putting millennial and Gen Z employees front and center as key planners, giving them the chance to shape projects and influence decision-making in ways that weren't really common in the past. So how exactly are companies doing this, and what impact is it having on the workplace, Julian?
Yeah, so at one company, employees born in the 90s were selected as in-house merchandise supporters, and they hold a new product evaluation every month. This actually helps the company gauge the market reactions when launching new products. But beyond just product quality, the employees identify areas for improvement in packaging, events, and other aspects, and their pays are actually pretty in line with actual market responses. Now, there is actually another company that created a welfare shopping mall site called the MZ Specialty Section, which is planned and operated by the MZ generation employees. This reportedly attracted far more visitors compared to other specialty sections, about 25% more to be exact. And personally, I really think that it's good that companies are listening to their employees. It helps the employees do an actual better job with their work quality, as well as working with a product that they actually enjoy. And people can enjoy shopping products that meet their expectations too.
So it shows that when companies actually listen to their younger workers, it also produces great results in the market as well. So Keith, do you know any other ways that young employees are making a difference?
Sure, their skills and maybe intuitions towards the world of new media are amazing, like YouTube, TikTok, or other social media, all those platforms. And the content led by younger generation and younger staff feels fresh and relatable because they weave in the latest memes, popular dramas, and song lyrics, just like K-pop Demon Hunters nowadays. Adds this sense of energy, humor, and familiarity that really connects with people and sometimes even goes viral on online communities. What's also interesting is that not just about highlighting the positive side, they're also tackling real challenges and offering solutions to long-standing issues, which is why the public response has been so strong. When I was working for the Ministry of Unification about 15 years ago, the ministry actually was one of the very first ones to have the Facebook page and interacting with the fans and give out some of the gifts through that webpage. And I was the one who was in charge of the marketing because back then I was the youngest when I was super young. And in fact, Jeju City nowadays has taken a step further. They actually hold auditions to select the right civil servants for their YouTube channel to shine and even provide acting lessons to them.
That's really interesting. So back in the day when you worked with the Unification Ministry, what was the response like for that?
It was great. You know, people were not really interested in unification in general, because North Korea and South Korea are always fighting each other. The news wasn't great, but then they come in, they learn. And then the reason why we had that page is to change our conception towards unification, so reunification. So that's why we had a pretty good public response, and it even got awards from the government for having a better marketing strategy.
And I think what you said about Jeju City also doing this is also really interesting, because I didn't think public officials would be interested in getting involved, but the fact they're holding auditions means that a lot of people want to do this, right?
Exactly, because two things. Number one, to find out the right person, right fit for the specific position on a YouTube channel, but also, just sitting down and doing their job in front of the desk could be boring, whereas this is a chance to just get out of the office and try something new as a public servant. So I think it's a good opportunity, and it's just a change in the trend.
So to learn more about this reverse mentoring, how it's shaping interactions between generations, we're going to speak with an education expert, and that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Dr. Park Nam-gi, the former president of Gwangju National University of Education. Hi, Dr. Park. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thanks.
So as an educator and a member of the older generation, what do you see as the main benefits of this reverse mentoring trend?
Do I really look like a member of the old generation?
You don't, though. You don't.
Actually, the youngsters don't like this kind of joke. They say it's 아재 개그. That's why we need reverse mentoring. Okay, let me talk about the benefits. So reverse mentoring helps, like you say, already bridge the generation gap. So we learn the most when we teach or mentoring. So in preparing to teach and throughout the teaching process, the younger mentors also grows and develops their knowledge and skills. And reverse mentoring also builds respect across generations. It shows that learning is not one way, but a partnership. So when older generation do something and the younger people share ideas, and schools and workplaces can grow stronger and more innovative and more inclusive. So for reverse mentoring, to succeed, several key condition efforts are needed. It doesn't mean like if you just do the reverse mentoring, it will work. It doesn't work like that. So they have clear purpose and goal setting, proper mentor-mentee matching. So sometimes maybe need rematching based on the feedback, and sufficient prior training for both mentor and mentee. Because if you are not trained enough, it doesn't work well. And continuity of the program, because many company or many organization, they just do one time and it doesn't go on well. So you have to keep going on. And maybe based on that, on performance management need. So these kind of things, we should prepare for that. If not, then it doesn't work well.
Great. So hi, Dr. Park. Why do you think that reverse mentoring is becoming more common in today's society?
It's because our world is changing very quickly, especially with technology and social values. As a result, the gap in experience, skills, and value between younger and older generations are widening. This can lead to communication and mutual understanding difficulties. So younger and older generations, even while living in the same space, works in the same space, end up acting as if they live in different worlds. So reverse mentoring can turn these differences into opportunities for mutual learning. So younger generations often understand new tools, digital cultures, and trends faster. And at the same time, older generations have long experience, wisdom, and deep knowledge. So by turning the traditional mentoring model upside down, both sides can learn from each other. So through this reverse mentoring, students in school case or younger teachers can guide senior educators to understand these changes better. So this helps schools stay connected, and it's really the real lives of students, because all generation teachers, it's really hard to understand students. In that case, if you make the student as a mentor to how to guide the students, then maybe you really can learn many things. I think that's why even school needs those kind of things.
Thank you, Doctor. Based on your insights, and to be more specific, and believe me, Doctor, I'm much closer to older generation. So on the flip side, what lessons from the older generation do you think young people should pay attention to?
Yeah, when I talk to my students, I tell them, don't think we are the same people who live in the same world. I am the future person, come from your future. So young people can learn powerful lessons from older generation because they come from your future. So they are the person who already lived the years you are working into. So ask those people, ask those visitors from the future, anything you are curious about regarding your own future, then you will find many answers. They offer perspectives. They have faced many changes and hard times, so they can teach patience, how to bounce back, and how to stick with a goal when the road is rough. Older generations show long-term thinking, how to slow down and see the big picture and make choices that age well. So if young act as a member of the reverse mentoring program, they may find the role tougher than expected, and results not instant. So use those feelings to see what older mentors struggle with too. So when we join young energy with proven wisdom and try to understand each other, we may build a stronger and steadier future, I think.
Right, that was a great reminder that we tend to focus on how things are changing, like how times are changing, but like there's a lot of struggles. We face a lot of the same struggles, so that was a really great reminder for the younger generation to also lean and kind of rely on the older generation as well. So thank you for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've just heard from an education expert about the benefits of reverse mentoring, why it's becoming more common, and the key lessons younger generations can take from their older colleagues. So Julian, what about you? As a member of the younger generation, is there anything in particular you'd like to learn from the older generation?
Well, there is a lot, actually. As a Gen Zer, I don't think I have as much experience compared to my older colleagues, so I genuinely do believe that there's valuable insight that comes from time and experience. But that being said, I'd like to get more insight on building a more long-lasting career and working on work-life balance strategies. But combining my perspective as a Gen Zer, I really do hope that with this, I can build a strong base for my career. But I do want to mention that I don't find just the older generation to have insightful advice. Just like we discussed on the show, I believe that the younger generation, as well as the generation below mine, also has a valid and interesting perspective that is worth listening to.
That's a great reminder. And to wrap up our discussion for today, looking ahead, what do you think is the most effective way for younger and older generations to collaborate, learn from each other, and move forward together in the same direction?
Well, just like Dr. Park said and Julian said, we need to listen to each other. Like diversity is really what allows growth to reach its full potential. It's not just about one side changing as much as the older generation needs to adapt to a rapidly changing environment and new environment. The MZ generation also needs to show some respect, and it's all about finding that balance and harmony.
So in the end, reverse mentoring isn't just about age, it's about perspective. So when older and younger generations take the time to really listen to each other, they do more than bridge the gap between them. They create opportunities to exchange wisdom and fresh ideas, to challenge assumptions, and to discover new ways of moving forward together. And that collaboration across generations may be one of the most powerful tools we have for adapting to a world that never seems to stop changing. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Julian.
Thank you for having me today.
Coming in, and also Ki.
Thank you.
For joining us today. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.
Building a sustainable tomorrow. Connect, innovate, and prosper. Connecting goods to goods, region to region, people to people, generation to generation. Facilitating innovation for all, closing the digital divide. Building an inclusive technology ecosystem, promoting digital innovation by deepening dialogues on AI. Achieving shared prosperity, addressing global challenges. Energy transition, climate change, population decline, and pandemic responses. APEC-related events continuing in Seoul, the capital of the Republic of Korea, where diverse cultures blend. Jeju, the beautiful island, blessed with UNESCO Natural World Heritage Sites. Incheon, the vibrant international city, central hub, connecting Asia Pacific. Busan, the largest maritime city, centering around